Hey guys, I want to tell you a story of a time when I challenged my conditioning by questioning things that I was taught do not question. See, my parents had gotten me a Bible when I was 4 years old because thanks to the Wizard of Oz, I was terrified of tornadoes. I mean, we lived in a trailer in a little farming community in Kansas. So the Bible had a zipper around it so that any time a storm would come at night, I could get my Bible and I could sleep with it. Because to me, the Bible wasn't just a book, it was God's book that held superhero powers that would protect me. And I went to our little town Baptist church with my friends where we all got saved, baptized, went to summer church camp, the whole program. But I had never really read very much of the Bible at all until I went to Bible college, where in order to join this Bible college, you had to believe three things. Number one, the Bible is the perfect and inerrant Word of God. Number two, the God of the Bible is incapable of doing anything wrong. And number three, you do not question number one or number two. But I wasn't there to question. I had accepted that the Bible was the true Word of God, and I was there to learn how to defend it. And my hero was Josh McDowell, a Christian apologist, who wrote Evidence That Demands a Verdict, and More Evidence, and New Evidence, and More Than a Carpenter. And he could make any alleged contradiction in the Bible kind of disappear from my mind. So I was not even willing to accept the possibility that the Bible might contain errors. And I kept this belief, this reality, this mindset all through my 20s, my 30s, my 40s. But when I was nearing 50, I began to doubt and to question the Bible and Christianity. Now, it wasn't that I was questioning God. To me, the existence of a creator has always seemed self-evident, and especially to me today, it's just, it just is, to me at least. But I was questioning the belief system that I had adopted as my truth, reality, and my identity in my childhood. Now, I had argued with atheists over these so-called Bible contradictions, and they had told me that even the accounts of the birth of Jesus from Matthew and Luke's gospel contain contradictions and can't fit together. And I never looked at it because I was, get behind me, Satan. I'm not going to be deceived away from the truth. But in the state I was in here in my late 40s, where I was really having a trouble with Christianity and with believing and with the Bible, and I'm thinking, God, I got to believe so much crazy stuff just to follow Jesus. And so I said, okay. And I got out some Bible maps, and I got out a calendar, and I opened the Bible to the book of Luke. And I started reading, and it told the story of how Mary and Joseph were living in Nazareth when an angel appeared to each of them, telling them that Mary was going to give birth to the Son of the Most High. Well, Mary became pregnant, and because of a census, they had to make the week-long trip from Nazareth in Galilee to Bethlehem in Judea, where Mary gave birth to Jesus in a stable because there was no room in the inn. Meanwhile, shepherds in the field were watching their flocks by night when angels appeared to them, and they were terrified as the glory of the Lord shone round about them. But the angels said, "Fear not, because we're bringing you good news, because tonight in the town of Bethlehem, the Christ has been born." And there was suddenly an heavenly host of angels, and when the angels were gone, the shepherds said, "We got to go see this baby." And they found the baby in the manger, and then they went all around Bethlehem telling everyone. And this story spread like wildfire, and also to Jerusalem, which was only 5 miles down the road. Now, Mary and Joseph stayed in Bethlehem until Jesus was 40 days old, when they took him to the temple to present him to the Lord as was required in the law of Moses. And when they were there, two aged saints, one Anna and one Simeon, they saw the child, recognized him as the Messiah, and went through Jerusalem telling everyone who was looking for the Messiah that he had been born. When Mary and Joseph finished all that there was required of them, they left Jerusalem, took a trip back to their home in Nazareth, but it tells us in Luke 2:41 that every year they returned to Jerusalem to celebrate the feast of Passover. And in the rest of the chapter, we learn that they traveled in a caravan with family and friends from Galilee to Jerusalem every year for the Passover. So then I open Matthew's gospel and I read about his account, which tells us that Jesus was born in Bethlehem, and these wise men from the east had traveled, and they stopped at King Herod's palace and said, "Where is the one that's born the new king?" And King Herod was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. So it seems like King Herod knew nothing about it, nor did anyone in Jerusalem. So King Herod calls the priest, chief priest, and the teachers of the law, and says, "Where is this king to be born?" And they said, "In Bethlehem." And they determined from the time the wise men had seen the star that the Messiah had been born in Bethlehem within the last 2 years. So King Herod says to the wise men, "Go to Bethlehem, find the child, and then return to me and tell me so I can come and worship him." Like, yeah, right, Herod. So they leave King Herod, they travel 5 miles down the road to Bethlehem, following the star, which stops above the house where Jesus was. So this isn't going into a manger, it's going into a house. And they gave him the gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh, but being warned by God in a dream not to return to Herod, they hightailed it out of town and head back to their country in another way. Now, I don't know how long it took for King Herod to figure out that, hey, the wise men, they ain't coming back. But I doubt that it's very long, since he probably could have seen Bethlehem and certainly could have seen the star if it was there, from his balcony of his palace. But he was livid, and he ordered his soldiers to go and kill all the baby boys 2 years and under in Nazareth. In the meantime, an angel had appeared to Joseph at night in a dream and said, "Arise, take the child and his mother, and flee to Egypt and stay there until I tell you." So they head out by night across the desert. They go to Egypt, and they live there until after the death of Herod, when an angel appears to Joseph and says, "Now you can take the child and go back to Israel, because King Herod is dead." So they leave, and they're on their way back, and they hear the news that King Herod's very evil son, Archelaus, had taken over from his father's throne. And so they were afraid to go there. So instead of going to Bethlehem, which they probably had a house there, they turned north and went to Galilee and settled in the town called Nazareth. Now, the birth of Jesus is probably the most well-known story in the world, with the manger scene, the shepherds and the wise men and the star and the angels. And I tried to make these two accounts fit together, and I could not do it. I couldn't make Joseph and Mary be in Jerusalem at the temple 40 days after Jesus was born, and then return to Nazareth, only to return to Jerusalem every year to celebrate Passover, when Matthew has them fleeing to Egypt and afraid to return to Jerusalem even after the death of King Herod. And if they would have returned to Bethlehem or Jerusalem, they more than likely would have been run out of town by angry parents, family, and friends of those innocents that were killed by King Herod because of Joseph and Mary. Now, here's how I've come to understand Jesus and life today. Our perception gives us our reality. That's the rules of the game of life if we are a human being. It doesn't matter whether our beliefs hold any truth to them. If we believe them, well, to us, in our mind, in the mind of whatever collective we belong to, they are true. Now, I don't remember asking to be born into this white American male body, but somehow I'm here. So I'm pretty certain that I could just as easily have been born into a body in any of these other religions, and you could too, in which case we would be viewing the world through a very different perception of reality, because we would be looking at the world and judging it through the lenses of doctrine and beliefs of these other shared realities. Now, when I did this exercise, it allowed me to see that I had accepted my perception of reality from the church community that I grew up in. And what I did without realizing it as a child was I had pledged my life to join into a shared reality with a larger collective who had all agreed together before joining the religion to believe the doctrines of the faith. And once we pledge our lives to belong to the religion, well, most people remain in the religion for their entire life because we're taught not to question, and it's become our truth, reality, and our social network of friends. Now, whether you're religious, you're in a religion or not, I invite you to do this exercise and decide for yourself. Now, I personally, you put the two side by side, you look at it without trying to let your beliefs, influence what you see. Just let them be. I can't make them fit together, but I have shared this with Christians that, they don't see any contradictions, and that's okay, because it's not my place to tell you or anybody else what to believe, think, or how to act. But I will share with you or anyone else my beliefs in Jesus Christ and how I arrived at those beliefs. So click in the description box, get this, and read through it. If you like this, please give it a like, share it with anyone you think may benefit. Consider subscribing, and I wish for your life joy and peace.